Let's turn this way up. It's only been a couple seconds since she went past here, maybe a minute in total. If we come down closer, they feel weak, to be honest. I think we're gonna let this go a minute or two and we'll come back and see what this looks like. We're trying not to just burn everything off super slow. Let's move up to this patch here. And see how this is almost completely gone, but she was going at like 0.1 miles an hour. And we want to, you know, you can see all this is black here maybe. Can the camera see that? We want her to be moving at more of a walking pace. You can't see where she stepped here. I mean, that stuff's pretty like mushy. I'm curious. We'll come back, we'll see how it did. Let's catch up with her. So I mean, you can see the tires are almost constantly moving, but it's definitely not a walking pace. And as she goes into the thicker, it's even a little bit slower. And I don't know if it's getting it all, and this stuff's pretty small. We have walls, it's not very windy in here. Alright, I mean, you can almost see the path that one of the nozzles took, where it took everything out. This looks green, this looks green, that's a darker green, little darker, little darker. I don't know. Alright, so this area she went over 2 times at a very slow pace. It's still very green and looks very alive. Again, if you can see, the little black here, I mean, that's from being burnt. It looks like this might fall. I mean, that's what they claim, is give it a little bit of time and it'll all wilt over, even if it doesn't look dead yet. So we're gonna give this some time, see what it looks like. But again, I mean, nozzle, no nozzle, nozzle, no nozzle, nozzle. All right, it's been about 15 minutes. Well, it's been 16, 17 minutes now. So as you can see, they still look very green. You can see a lot of wiltedness, some burnt tips, but they definitely don't look dead. They feel dead. And when you run your hand over it, your hand almost gets wet. I've done it a few times. But yeah, see how my fingertips are wet? That's definitely not dew. Where she went really slow, I mean, you can see they're completely just gone. It wasn't as dense up here, but as she sped up, used a lot less propane, they look more alive, but I think they're equally dead. So it's been about an hour. This has been walked on quite a bit. We're putting transplants up here. But all in all, I mean, it worked really well. If you look down the row, you don't see nearly as much green as you did before. It's almost all gone. I think we need to trust the system and pick the pace up a little as we walk. Where there is anything, it's very dried out and minimal and just stuck to the ground. So again, I think we need to pick our pace up a little bit, trust that it works. And because it was at such an early stage, it shouldn't have any roots deep enough to regrow. It didn't get everything. This stuff seems like it'll probably regrow. It feels a little soft, but it's not quite as hurt as everything else. The main thing we learned is that it just needs a lot of time. Give it an hour, or you can really start to see the results. It's not nearly as green on the edge. I know we were covering all this, but this was very bright green all throughout here. And it's pretty much gone now. Okay, so the wind is blowing like crazy right now. We planted this area last week. Oh, there goes my hat. Oh man. All right, well, we'll get that later. So Kayla's here, she's about to flame weed. This is a bed of carrots we planted last week. It's been 6 days. You can see there's tons of little grass weeds coming up. The carrots we expect to be just behind that. We should see them in the next day or two. So she's gonna flame weed this. That way all these weeds are gone and our carrots are the first things to come up. So let's look behind me here at some of the other stuff we planted. We have a bed of spinach that's starting to come up. It is pretty weedy back in here, but if we come low, you can see how these are all in a line, which means it's our spinach that's come up and it's too late to flame weed. I probably missed this. Yesterday would have been a great day to get out here. It didn't happen, it was raining and windy. The flame weeder doesn't work super well in the wind, so we try not to use it when it's windy like this. But today we don't really have a choice, we have to do it. They're gonna come up either tonight or tomorrow morning. That's too much to weed by hand. She's gotta do it in the wind. They do sell, oh, I'm getting blown to the side. They do sell a hood for this. We don't have it yet. We should probably get that. It would help us on days like this, but right now we just have to make do with what we have. So she's doing that. Like I said, we've got spinach coming up in these 2 rows. If we step over to here, we've got some beans. And as you can see, they're coming up. Pretty exciting stuff. A little tightly spaced, but we can work with that. A couple more right there. So let's jump across. This is another bed of beans. We can find some if we look. Another bed of beans, there's stuff there. So we're over here. We planted corn in this row and this row. She just got done with the carrots. We have found 1 or 2 corns sprouting up, but we're gonna risk it. There's enough grass and not enough corn. I think we'll do more help than damage. We might hurt a corn stalk or 2, but we'll kill 1,000 or so pieces of grass. So she's going over that, and hopefully tomorrow, all this is gonna be sprouting in the next day or 2. It's gonna be exciting. Let's take a look. Gosh, there went my hat again. Let's take a look back at our carrots. So if we look back at our carrots, it's only been a second or 2. All of this is gonna die off. We'll come back in an hour, see how it looks, but I'm really excited. All of this is gonna go away and our carrots are gonna come up tonight or tomorrow. Good stuff. Next, let's talk about how we use this to manage all the weeds in here. So we came through with the tine rake the other day and that got a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot of little weeds within here. See all of these? Those will all grow up into big blotches of grass, and we cannot have that. This one we've already gone through with the Colinear hoe and gotten a good majority of the weeds in between the rows. But this one we still need to do. As you can see, it doesn't look as crisp. So we need to go through with our Colinear hoe and get a lot of these weeds. We actually haven't used the section with this greenhouse to farm very much, so the weeds are still pretty bad in here and we're still using the hose. So I'm gonna show you how to do that real quick. So let's take a look at what we're trying to get rid of here. Okay, so here's our row of arugula. You can see the arugula right here, and in between we have all these grasses. So we need to take our Colinear hoe, we need to drag it in between to kill those grasses. I'm gonna set the camera down and show you what that looks like. Okay, so you want to set it down in there and just start pulling it along and believing it. So then again, set it down in between, and we're just going to pull it through. Put it down. Now it's kind of hard for me right now because I'm doing it for the camera, but usually you want to walk kind of quickly. So let's get down in here and kind of see what we did. So see how all of these grasses are pulled up and they've got that little root on there? That's good. That means we got them. Here's another one. It's got that root and it's out. So although like these ones here aren't out, you know, we didn't get those. There we go. So you're not going to get everything, but you're going to get a majority of it with very little time. You know, I was able to do all 4 or 5 rows there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was able to do all 4 rows in a 20-foot span relatively quickly. So I'm going to put this on a time lapse and you can see what that looks like going back and forth. Jess and Kayla are going to make their way over shortly and help. And you can really see what it takes to weed something like this. Finished this row right here. It took a total of 15 minutes. We're gonna go to lunch right now, which will give these weeds a little bit of time to die down. That's always a good thing. And then we'll come look at how we did, what kind of impact we had. I'd say we got about 75% of the weeds in between the 2 arugula rows. That's pretty good. I don't think you can ever get to 100, but at 75%, we can come back in a day or 2 and maybe get 90% of the remaining 25%, and we'll be off. Our arugula is really well established. It's looking good. It's gonna get big and shade these weeds out soon. Usually we don't have to weed this much in the field, but this is a brand new area like I was saying, so it's gonna take a little extra work. So we're back from lunch. This is what we just weeded before we left. And as you can see, some of these, like this is probably gonna regrow. It's not really pulled out, but this one here, that's done. Overall, it's looking a lot better than it did. Like I said, we're probably in the 75% range. We'll come through here in a couple days and get some more. But for right now, these 4 rows here are looking all right. Okay, so we just finished up in here. These two rows of radish right here, the rows weren't very straight, so I kind of had to weed it different. I just went down one patch and then up the next instead of each individual row. It's definitely way more effective when it comes up nicely in those rows and you can just go between them. When it's all patchy like this, it makes weeding way more difficult. And that's especially true with this row. I did as good as I can in a very short amount of time. I don't want to waste my time too much here. This is pretty weedy, so we did kind of a first run, if you will. We'll come back in a couple days and see if we can salvage this. Let's go down here and I'll kind of show you what I mean. Okay, so when we look at this is really sporadic. It's not nice row. So we did what we could to get some of this grass out of here, although a lot of it's gonna come back and we didn't do a great job. And that's because I don't have time to do a great job. If I were to sit here and work on getting this perfect, that would take multiple hours. Instead, I did 20 minutes. I got as much as I could within those 20 minutes. I spent all my time on the like high value areas. And the hope is that our radish grow up faster than the grass and we can salvage it. If not, we'll come by in a week or two after monitoring this and just get rid of it. And getting rid of a row can always be a bummer, but it's way better to make money by getting rid of this and not spending the labor than to pour tons of hours of labor into this, break even, and not work elsewhere on your farm. Like I said in a previous video, we like to work on the low-hanging fruit, and we let the stuff that gets away from us get away from us. We're not gonna fight every little thing. Mother Nature's just too strong. So we do what we can, where we can, and make that count. Instead of fighting Mother Nature with every little weed in every single bed, there are ones that just we barely have to spend any time on, and those are really profitable. There are some like this one here, or this front one, that we're gonna take forever. These 2 rows would have taken more time than the rest of the farm. So it's better just to get rid of them and focus on the stuff that's really good. So we're back in the hoop house. It's been a couple hours. I kind of want to go over what's been happening in those couple of hours. First off, let's move to where we flame wed. Okay, if you guys remember this morning, this stuff was bright green. It was big. You could really see it. We'll walk down to that patch here in a minute. But this was that patch that we really focused on this morning. And as you can see, it's pretty much down to nothing. This stuff, really unhealthy. It's really dying off quick. That's a nice patch though, still living. But let's kind of zoom out. And you can see this stuff is pretty much done for the most part. Give it another hour or two, you probably won't even be able to see it. This is all super dried out. Good stuff. So then this patch, this stuff here is all very dry, very crispy. If we move over to here, you can definitely see this fared a lot better. This doesn't feel too bad. It feels like it's probably gonna regrow. This, you can see burnt tips, but the bottom of the plant still feels pretty nice. So I think all that's gonna come back. This right next to it though, this is done for. This is all dried up and just super crispy. So as you can see, it really has changed a lot in the last few hours. When we looked at this right after flame weeding, it was still bright green. You could see everything, and it really looked like it hadn't done much damage. Now that it's been a few hours, you can really see what it's done. This was a really bad patch. That's almost nothing now. And same with up here. This is where that main patch was at. Almost nothing. Let's move a little more intro row with these arugula beds here and see what's been happening there. So as you can see, all these little grasses here within the row, those are all drying up. They're all over the place. Here's one. So as you can see, all these little grasses have all been pulled out, and they're starting to dry out going down the row. There are some like right here that are still alive. So as time continues, these ones that we got out, like this one and this one here and that one and all of these are all gonna dry out and we won't be able to see them as much. The ones that we missed, like this one and this one, those are all gonna stand out a lot more now. So if we go through in a couple days, it'll be way easier to see which ones are there. If we tried to go through now, we'd still be focused on weeding stuff like this, even though it's already out of there. So the hoes aren't perfect. It looks a lot better than it did, you know? I think where you're gonna be able to see the effectiveness of the hose the most are in this first row of radish that was in really bad shape. I brought the hoe right through here, and as you can see, there's tons of little grasses that it killed with it. They're all over the place. You can really see the impact that it had with all of this. Before in this section, you couldn't really see that there were rows at all. And although it's still a little blurry and it's not super crisp because of how many weeds there are, you could definitely tell where some of the rows are. So I do think that this is going to recover all right, definitely being that it's radish. It's going to be able to shade out some of these weeds, and I think we got a good start on it. We do need to come back in another day or two and clean up a little more. But as these weeds die off, we'll have a better understanding of where it is that we need to focus our time. Well, that's pretty much it here for weeding in the greenhouse and how that looks and how long it takes and everything. In all, I would say we were out here probably 4.5 hours, putting 2.5 hours of good time in weeding. We did a lot, you know, we put down a landscape fabric here. We moved all the nursery crops. We put a landscape fabric here and at the other end down here.
Yo, raising the Tobagos, we growing like fresh tomatoes. Them boys on fire, too fuego, we pass it round hot potato. Everything is nuevo, I'm with my sweetie like Quavo. Need my cheese, need that queso, need my bread, need that bankroll. Wake up, yes Lord, I'm thankful, another day on my schedule. Steady blocking the devil, I tell a hater, God bless you. Cherish moments that special, you gotta keep the memento. If you love me, then I love you, and I could never forget you. Some memories don't fade, sometimes you miss the old days, but nothing changed unless you change what's around you, how you think, how you live, how you speak, how you walk, how you blink, how you talk, how you teach, how you reach, let it sink. What's your purpose? What's your passion? Did it pain? What's your plan? Is it play? Wanna play? How'd you play? I'm just playing. What's your purpose? What's your passion? Did it pain? What's your play? Is it play? Wanna play? How'd you play? I'm just playing. A beat by Joby, feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, cause I'm a star and they can't hold me like I'm Kobe in the fourth. Yeah, nothing is.
Well, I hope this is ours. I don't know. There are a couple things in there. This is the one that didn't have a name on it. The stuff that did have a name on it wasn't my name.
Been chasing dreams since 17, so yeah, I've been on my
see what we have here.
Loaded up the vault that had to empty the clip. Remember days we wasn't paid that had to roll up the clips. Now the herbs be extra strong
in a cup.
People say we taking long, but we ain't
just
rushing
kidding.
with
Water test.
put the plans in God's hands and he
Getting our well tested.
I ain't tripping over because I'm watching my
And this is
step.
the kit to do that.
Money on the phone, dab and call and collect. All on respect, I can't lie, I'm just here for a check. Just to build my family out and to buy a family house. A lot of people only talking, put your money where your mouth is. Some memories don't fade, sometimes you miss the old days, but nothing changed unless you change what's around you, how you think, how you live, how you speak, how you walk, how you blink, how you talk, how you teach, how you reach, let it sink.